You know the face. It's literally everywhere, plastered on t-shirts, dorm room posters, and murals all over the world. Ernesto Che Guevara is easily one of the 20th century's most recognizable historical figures, but he's also one of the most intensely polarizing. The actual history behind that famous image is deeply complex, so let's peel back the layers and unpack the real man behind the myth.
To truly get a grasp on who Che Guevara was, we have to start by looking past that icon and asking a pretty wild question. How exactly does a middle-class medical student transform into a global revolutionary? It doesn't just happen overnight, right? Let's track this incredible transformation step by step. Born in Argentina back in 1928, Guevara actually struggled with incredibly severe childhood asthma, but he built up this remarkable physical resilience by pushing himself, hiking, and playing rugby. He eventually went on to study medicine, but the real turning point? That happened in 1952. He and a buddy took off on an epic 8,000-kilometer motorcycle journey across South America on a bike they called La Poderosa. And what he saw on that trip? The extreme poverty, the hunger, and a total lack of basic healthcare for indigenous communities and miners. It completely shattered his worldview.
And that shattered worldview quickly radicalized. By 1954, after he'd officially graduated as a doctor, Che found himself in Guatemala, right as the reformist government of Jacobo Arbenz was overthrown. For Che, this was a massive light bulb moment. He became absolutely convinced that foreign economic interests were just pulling the strings in Latin American politics, permanently cementing his total commitment to revolutionary socialism.
Fast forward to 1955. He meets Fidel and Raul Castro in Mexico and teams up with them to overthrow Cuban leader Fulgencio Batista. Now, after a totally disastrous initial landing in Cuba, the survivors had to regroup up in the Sierra Maestra Mountains, and this is where Che really emerged as a master military strategist. But he didn't just lead guerrilla attacks. He actually brought his medical and educational background straight into the mountains with him, establishing rural schools and literacy programs, all while enforcing incredibly strict discipline among the ranks.
After Che led a huge turning point victory at the Battle of Santa Clara, Batista finally fled Cuba on January 1, 1959. The revolution had actually succeeded. Almost overnight, Che transitioned from a rugged guerrilla fighter to a high-ranking government official, serving as president of the National Bank and Minister of Industries. In these new roles, he aggressively pushed for rapid industrialization, universal healthcare, and total economic independence.
But here's the thing about Che. He firmly believed revolution couldn't just be contained to one single island. It had to be an international movement. So in 1965, he actually left Cuba for the Congo to try and export armed struggle, though that campaign essentially failed due to internal divisions. A year later, he secretly slipped into Bolivia. But instead of sparking a massive South American revolution like he hoped, he ran into incredibly harsh terrain, practically zero local support, and a highly effective foreign-backed Bolivian military. On October 8, 1967, he was captured and he was executed the very next day. When you look back at his legacy, it's built on a really unusual resume. He was a key leader of the Cuban Revolution and a master military strategist. His writings on guerrilla warfare are literally still studied today. But his background as a doctor heavily influenced his fierce advocacy for public health and literacy. On top of that, he acted as a highly visible global diplomat, and of course, his memoir, The Motorcycle Diaries, remains a massive cultural touchstone even now. That massive cultural impact, however, is heavily debated. To his supporters, Che is a selfless champion of the oppressed, a true symbol of resistance who gladly sacrificed his own personal comfort for his ideals. But if you talk to his critics, they paint a completely different picture. They're quick to point out his aggressive support for armed revolution and one-party rule. They highlight that, as a revolutionary official, he oversaw tribunals that resulted in executions, and they note that his economic policies are still heavily criticized by historians today. So this leaves us with a really profound historical question. Do his achievements for social equality overshadow the violence of his methods? Che Guevara's life combined medicine, military leadership, and fierce political activism into this incredible duality. And it's that very duality that guarantees his place as one of the most lasting and absolutely fiercely debated subjects of modern history. Keep exploring the history behind the headlines, and thanks for joining us on this explainer.